Welcome to the second Chief Operating Officer, Assistant Executive Director, Chief Program Officer, Peer Community Session at ProCon 2021. I hope you all have gotten your ProCon experience off to a good start. We loved the day yesterday, and we know that today is going to be a really full day, and we have lots planned for you. My name is Dory Donnell. For those of you who don't yet know me, I'm a Vice President for Governance and Leadership at Jcc Association of North America. This session is being recorded, and we understand that some of you may not wish to be recorded, in which case you can turn off your camera. But we really encourage everyone who is comfortable doing so to please stay visible. It helps us to feel as if we are all in the room together. If for some reason this is not the session you wanted to join, you can return to Spot Me and select a different session. Joining me today, once again, from Jcc Association is Sam Cohen. I definitely hit the jackpot with having Sam be a partner for this group. Sam is Vice President for Program and Talent at Jcc Association. Our names appear as hosts at the top of your participation list. You can chat with either of us if you have any needs or questions. We aspire for everyone to feel that they belong at ProCon 2021 and are working to build inclusive spaces in which all people feel welcome, respected, safe, and fully included. To that end, we encourage you to consider the following suggestions. We invite you to rename yourself in Zoom with your name, your agency, and if you're comfortable adding preferred personal pronouns. We've also enabled closed captioning for everyone's use. You do have the option to turn it off if you find it to be a little distracting by using the button on the toolbar. Please reach out to Sam or me in the chat if there's anything we can do to enhance your learning experience. We are thrilled to be able to offer this conference to our JCCs at no charge, with no fee for the first time ever, due to our generous sponsors. Many of you spent some time with our vendors yesterday, and we encourage you to do so again tomorrow. This particular group is sponsored by Power Wellness, which is a company that helps plan, develop, and manage over 50 wellness centers nationwide. We're also sponsored by Weld Health, who we heard from yesterday, a fitness and technology that empowers organizations to offer wellness programs. You can see both at the virtual vendor hall, and we hope that you will ask your questions of our sponsors. So for our session today, we will explore how we use stress as a tool instead of a constraint. And we'll focus on specific strategies in which we can guide our staff members to cultivate resiliency, avoid burnout, bounce back from setbacks, advance, and thrive. At our opening session yesterday, I was thinking about the question that Helen Chernikoff posed when she asked, how do we nurture people who are having a hard time? And Gali Cooks answered her by saying that we need to name it in order to help reframe it, and that we should think about how can we even make things even 5% better for our staff. And clearly that's going to be a theme and a goal in our session today. This is going to be a very interactive session that will include time for discussion with your colleagues. We are so pleased to have with us today Dr. Deborah Gilboa, better known as Dr. G. Dr. G provides no-nonsense advice for development and growth in a very humorous, engaging, and down-to-earth manner. She is a board-certified attending family physician in Pittsburgh. You can find her full bio on the Spot Me platform. We are so fortunate to have Dr. G with us today. Please join me in welcoming her. Dr. G, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone's time, and I'm really honored that this is where we're going to spend our day for just the next 90 minutes, because the hard part, to be fair, of being the second in command of your agency and being here is that you're not here, you're there. And so everybody's coming to you, and even though they know you're at a conference, you're still pretty available. There's so many excellent ways you could be using your time right now, and I'm honored that you chose this one. And so it is my obligation to make sure that it's incredibly useful to you. I want to start off by talking about change, because when people experience stress, when they need resilience, it's because of change. Change is the culprit. Change is the problem, except that change is also the opportunity. We cannot grow, we can't get what we want without change. You know, in Judaism, we talk about the lashon hara and the lashon hatov, which is our impetus for evil and our impetus for good is the easiest way that that's translated. And the rabbis say you got to have both. Like, it seems to a kid like you'd want to just have the impetus for good, but we need that balance. So we need some times of stability and relaxation, which sound like a pipe dream right now, but we also need times of upheaval and change to get towards anything that will be better than what we had before. Change isn't new. So although for sure the last 14 months have been filled with obstacles and unpredicted change, you probably have change in mind that you want for your agency. You probably have changes you know are coming your way, even if you didn't want them. We are here talking about how do we heal from the changes that we've been navigating? How do we use this opportunity to create real greatness, stability, sustainability, new revenue streams, whatever those things are? How do we, given what we've been through, still use this opportunity to build stronger people, stronger agencies, and stronger communities? I don't like to make assumptions about what it is you are facing, but that means I need to ask you. So I am hoping that you will dive a little deeper into your own technologic resilience and come to another website with me. I would like for you to open a window on your phone or on your laptop or on a tablet. It can be on the device that you're watching this or a different device, it doesn't matter. Open any web browser, please, and go to the website menti.com, menti.com. This information is in the chat as well. The code that you need, it will ask you for your event code. It's 1786-7502. I'll explain that again in a moment, but the purpose here is for you to please come to this window and answer this question for me. What changes, when I just talked about that, when I said there are changes in front of us, some you want, some you don't want, but changes you know are lurking, what are they at your agency? One of the great things about this tool is that it allows us to see in aggregate what we're facing, but nobody knows who said what. So you have real protection of anonymity. And I hope that that will allow you to be pretty introspective and give us some information about what changes are your staff facing that you've told them about or that you haven't yet told them about, but that you're concerned about, that you think they're going to require real resilience to navigate. So a few people are already answering. Let me explain one more time how you do this for folks who might be like, wait, what? Go to menti.com, menti.com on any device, and then it will ask you for a code. Our code will stay the same for our entire event. It's 1786-7502. Okay, so some of the answers that we're getting: working under the new COVID restriction, instability in their home lives, reduction in hours, reorganization, operating in a climate of fiscal uncertainty, changing roles, hybrid work, reopening safely, undefined job descriptions and titles, on-site to off-site, back to on-site, and a new technology platform, new leadership, added responsibility. I'm skipping the ones that are a repeat of something we've seen when I read them aloud. Changing policies, anxious seniors who are uncomfortable about returning, balance between home and work more than ever before, learning new technologies and blending it with how they used to do things, rebuilding the organization, coming out of the mandates that have been keeping them COVID safe. We are working with less staff. We're constantly planning with unknown variables, coping with the trauma of the pandemic, burnout, programming within the health guidelines, personal and professional time boundaries due to online. I'm taking that to mean that boundaries are less clear because we are online. Changing how they work, shifting structure, more work, but no more pay, challenging work-life schedule balance, being asked to do more with less. That's a lot of the themes of what we're seeing here, right? How to build a business in challenging times, culture changes. That's really important. We're going to talk about that. Limited capabilities due to COVID, increased social stress and anxiety. Staff are challenged to summon the energy to innovate and have vision for our future while dealing with being overworked right now. That is very important. How do we navigate this time where we recognize the difficulty everybody has faced, where we celebrate and appreciate the fact that they are still standing, that you appreciate that you are still standing in your organization and still say, hey, but the storm's not over. There's more stuff coming our way. How can we actually recharge and be healthy enough, mentally healthy enough to go on? That's a lot of what we're going to discuss. New employees are hired during the pandemic and they're catching up to figure out, they don't even know what the past normal was, so they don't have anything to compare it to. They don't have that institutional knowledge, and they may feel very much like they're out of the loop when people talk about, well, should we go back to doing that? Pivoting with the constant changes from health orders and restrictions, how to feel successful, no raises when they might have been expected. And I really take this one in. We are so tired. Okay. I very much appreciate you sharing that, all of that with me. And now I want to give you a little bit of information about this idea of resilience and navigating change. If you have learned with me in any setting in the last year, you've seen this image. And some of you were with me, and I appreciate it, at the talent management seminar that I was lucky enough to do with JCCA in February. I am not going to jump off of that material without covering that material. So if you were not at that session, which is about 2/3 of you, no problem. If you were at that session, we're not going to go through it word by word. I'm going to remind you of the key concepts and talk about what really matters to what we're doing today. And I'll be clear when something is a review so that you're not sort of frustrated or thrown by that. This cycle is a review, but I would like for you to think about it again if you've seen me speak about this before, because all change requires resilience. The brain goes through certain steps every time we become aware of a change we wanted, a change we didn't want, a change we expected, or a change we didn't expect. It doesn't matter. Our brains have certain reactions to the possibility of every change. Our brain figures out, wait, what could I lose with this change? Wait, should I actually trust that this change is right, is good, is actually happening? And this is what makes me uncomfortable about that change. The reason that our brains do that, even with change we wanted, imagine please finding out that you got the job that you now have. I'm imagining that you put your name in the hat for that job, that you said in some way, formal or informal, yes, I'd be interested, that you had to go through some things to interview for that job or apply for that job, and then you found out you got it. Your brain went, wait. Even if you felt excited, honored, relieved, happy, your brain also said, wait, what could I lose? How could this be dangerous for us? Did I really get that job? Let me read that email again, or let me just ask one more time. And once you started to settle into the idea that this was really happening, the first things you noticed were what were uncomfortable about it. The reason that our brains do this is because although our brains have a million functions, they have one purpose. Our brain's purpose is to keep us alive. And because we are currently alive, it wants to keep the status quo because we're alive. Our brain doesn't concern itself so much with the quality of life. That's our higher, more logical, more forward thinking. Our basic functions of our brain are all concerned with maintaining the status quo. Do me a favor, put a yes in the chat if you have ever accidentally engaged the lock on your seatbelt while you're in a car. Have you ever been driving and tapped the brakes and engaged the locking mechanism in your seatbelt? Just give me a yes in the chat if you've ever had that experience, and a no if you haven't. So in that situation, when you're in the car and your seatbelt locks, well, if you are about to be in an accident and you tap the brakes and your seatbelt locks, that's fantastic. That saves your life potentially. But if you're just reaching to grab something from the back seat, your seatbelt may lock too. Your seatbelt doesn't care if the situation is actually dangerous. It just takes the parameter of you tapping the brakes and it locks your seatbelt. That's all. It does not consider the bigger picture. Our brains have that same kind of safety mechanism. Every time there's a change, our brain goes, wait, what about loss and distrust and discomfort? Then, as soon as you remember that you have any choices, that you can take that new job offer or not take that job offer, that you could take the job offer but ask for a longer time to get ready for it, or you could ask them to wait to announce it while you let your family know or your colleagues know, or whatever your concerns are, you have choices. Now you're acting in a resilient way. It doesn't mean that you don't still feel the loss or the distrust or the discomfort. It means that you are turning the corner towards resilient action, which is what we're going to spend most of our time together talking about. And as soon as you actually choose one or more of those choices, then you are engaging. And that engagement allows you to reunify, not necessarily with your new boss, not necessarily with your colleagues, with yourself. Resilience is the ability to navigate change and come through it the kind of person you want to be. That's resilience. The ability to navigate change and come through it the kind of person you want to be. So this is really a crucial idea for the work that we're doing, because we have to understand as leaders not to be offended when people struggle with change. You are often the messenger of change, whether you decided on that new technology or those new COVID protocols or any of the things you mentioned, or you weren't the decider, if it was your board or it was your CEO, still, you are often the messenger of that change. And it can be very frustrating when you announce that change and the people who work for you talk about their loss and their distrust and their discomfort. It can feel like a betrayal to you in your leadership. Have I not done a good job? Have I not built your trust? Do you not understand that I have your best interests and the best interests of our organization and our community in mind? As soon as you can understand that this is just the seatbelt locking, it's just that locking mechanism. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they think that you're not trustworthy, that you don't have the best interests of the agency or them in mind. It is just their automatic reaction to change. That will help your leadership, not just help how you treat them, help your inner monologue when you face those objections. You will expect those objections, and I hope be less frustrated by them. They will be less of an obstacle. You'll be like, oh, right, I knew this would happen. I have been I'm a family doctor and I do well checks on kids all the time, and I tap the knee with a reflex hammer, and every once in a while I get kicked. And it's startling. Occasionally it even hurts a little bit more because the kid always laughs.
Deborah, you muted yourself.
Sorry, you guys, I was not even on that screen. I apologize. Can anybody tell me the last thing you heard me say?
It's harder because the kid laughs.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. Not so far back. So I hope you also got a chuckle out of that, but I don't need to be mad about it, even if I'm physically hurt, because I know that's a reflex and I did that and I knew that could happen. When you look at this cycle, I hope that this helps you recognize not only how your staff reacts, but how you react to change. Some people are really quick at moving through loss, at disregarding the distrust that they feel, at moving past managing their discomfort and moving to choice. Mostly, we're each good at this in different settings. We may be very good at it in an emergency, but less good if someone says something that hurts our feelings. Or we might be great at it in interpersonal situations, but less resilient in financial situations. That has to do a great deal with what we've been through and the skills we've developed. And we're going to talk about how to develop these skills in ourselves and in the people that we work with. But first, I'd like for you to internalize this by doing this activity with me. Could you please come over to Menti if you're not there and answer this question for me? Where are you personally? Remember, this is anonymous. We won't know who said what. Where are you personally in the resilience cycle about opening back up to more in-person events? Going as a participant or running them as a leader, Where are you? So will you rank these for me, at least your top 3 or all 6? Are you mostly still feeling lost? Like that makes me lose my sense of safety. That does not seem okay. Are you distrust? I think it's dangerous. I don't think we should be opening up to the level that we are. Are you feeling mostly discomfort? And then after that, what are you feeling next? So will you take a moment, please, and rank this for yourself? Where are you with these 6 reactions about opening back up to more in-person events? I really appreciate that a bunch of people are engaging with Menti, and I want to explain for people who've joined a little bit later that all you need to do is go over to menti.com on any website browser, menti.com. The code for our event is 17867502. That's in the chat as well. So this is fun. This shows me that a lot of people are really feeling engagement and choice about opening back up, but that there are a bunch of people who are feeling discomfort. That makes sense, you know? And there's some people who have distrust and maybe some people experiencing loss. You can experience loss and distrust and discomfort at the same time. So you might have said, well, I put engagement first, but I put discomfort second. And I put distrust third, because I am engaging, or I am reunifying, or I am focusing on choice, but I am also feeling those things. So are your staff. So the question everybody wants to know is, if that cycle is real, and it is, how do we move people through the cycle a little faster? What is it that they need to start moving towards choice and engagement and reunification? We will answer that question. But before we do, I'd like to ask you about the biggest obstacle to moving through that cycle. What signs of overwhelm or burnout are you seeing in your staff? In addition to them telling you, I'm overwhelmed or burnt out, how can you tell? What are the red flags or even the yellow flags? What do you notice when you think, ooh, I got to keep an eye on that person or that department because I'm seeing what? Will you come to Menti, please? And these are open-ended answers. You can have short or long answers. And tell me, what are some signs in individual employees? Oh, sorry, word cloud, not the scrolling. And tell me in a word or in a phrase or in a sentence, what is it that you see in an individual employee or in a whole team or the mood at a meeting that lets you know that there's overwhelm or burnout that you're worried about? The words that we see the largest are the ones more people have written: frustration, overwhelmed, impatient, resistant, disengaged, apathy. We're getting some really good examples. Eye rolling, grumpy faces, short or curt responses, resentment, short-tempered, anxiety, fear. They're just tired. They're withdrawn, lazy, seeing the distrust, sadness, panic, anger, complaining, exhaustion. Thank you for letting me know. We're seeing a lot of people chiming in about this. And what this tells me is you've already taken a bunch of steps of leadership. You have to notice the problem. As you talked about yesterday in the COO sessions, this is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now. So when you're facing these things, what do you do? What are the concrete things you can do to help people? What you can do to move people towards resilience. There are 4 things that someone else can do for you, that you can do for someone else, that will help them, it's not guaranteed, that will help them move towards resilience. And we're going to talk about each of them. But the first and the most important is empathy. If you right now heard me say that and find yourself rolling your eyes, let me have some empathy for that. I get it. That's so frustrating to hear, like, I can't fix this just by caring about how they feel. You can't, but you can help them move the needle. Look, it is hard in the end of April 2021 to go to your staff and say, you just got to be a little bit more resilient, or even, I'm going to help you be more resilient. Because you know what that sounds like to them? That sounds like, suck it up, buttercup. We've still got work to do. And even though that may be true, that is absolutely not a helpful way to put that. And it's not enough. Like, it just won't work. If it would work, fantastic. We'd be running all of our JCCs like it was the Marines, and everything would be getting done efficiently, and we'd have none of those red flags that you were concerned about on the last slide. But it doesn't work. Just telling people to be stoic or to try harder or to be stronger does not work. So what does work? Let's talk first about empathy. Empathy makes a difference because the person feels seen. The person believes, only if it's true, the person believes that how they're feeling matters to you. Empathy is not saying, yeah, I feel like that too. No. Empathy is not saying, oh, if I were in your situation, I'd feel the exact same. Either of those can work as empathy if they're true for you, but they don't have to be what you say. We have a cultural belief right now that if you're a good person, you show empathy. And so I want to kind of change that narrative and pull the curtain away and talk about what is hard about showing empathy. Will you come over here to the screen on Menti? You can give me up to 3 answers. What are the 3 hardest things for you? Remember, this is anonymous. Nobody knows what you voted. So really look inside. What is hardest for you about showing empathy? Is it not knowing what to say? Is it wanting to just fix the problem so there's nothing to be upset about in the first place? Is it feeling responsible for the problem? So how can I show empathy when I'm the one who just told them this has got to be how it is? Not understanding why they're upset? Disagreeing with the emotion, they're mad and you don't think they have anything to be mad about or whatever it is? Or is it not wanting to excuse a bad decision or bad behavior that came out of the emotion that they're experiencing? For example, somebody feels really resentful about the change in their schedule, so they just don't come in. And you believe that if you show empathy for their frustration, you're saying you're kind of excusing them not coming in and leaving you without a lifeguard at your pool. Okay. So about half of you have answered so far. If you'll come over to Menti for me, remember menti.com, and the code is 1786-7502. And can you give me your top 1 or your top 2 or even 3? What's hard about showing empathy? We talk a lot about empathy like it's a given. Like if you're a good person, you know how to do this, no problem. And I call shenanigans on that. Empathy is really hard, especially for leaders, because you have so many other things to do. You can't spend all your time patting people on the hand and talking about their feelings. You just can't. You would not get anything else done. But your team needs your empathy, and you can do this. So let's talk about what's hard. For this group of leaders and fixers, it's not a big surprise that the hardest thing is wanting to just fix the problem. You know, I know what you should do, or I know what needs to happen, so I don't want to spend the time on your emotions. I just want to dive in and fix it. I get that. I understand, as I just mentioned, not wanting to excuse bad behavior or bad decisions because of that emotion. I understand disagreeing with the emotion. All of these things make sense. Let me ask you a question. Is it important to you that your staff understand, each of them, how to separate their emotions from their behavior? Think about that for yourself. Is that something that you really consider a requirement in adults who work for you, that they know how to separate their emotions, which are theirs, and there are no rules about what your emotions are, from their behavior, what they do? That is a necessary part of being employed as an adult. The good news about that is that you also can model that, teach that, and support that by separating out your reaction to their emotions from your reaction to their behavior. So if you expect them to be able to separate it, I expect you to be able to separate it too as best you can. I want you to practice saying, I hear your frustration. I notice that you are overwhelmed. I get that you are mad or sad or exhausted. And that matters because you matter to our organization. And not showing up for your shift is not acceptable. Yelling at a kid in preschool is not acceptable. Whatever the behavior was, separate it out. Show genuine empathy. So how do you do that when you're not sure what to say, or you don't understand the emotion that they're having in the first place, or you just want to fix it? All you have to do in language that's honest and genuine for you is say, you matter to us, so how you feel matters to me. You don't have to say, I'd be scared too, if you wouldn't. You don't have to say, yeah, I don't feel safe coming back either, if you do feel safe coming back. Don't lie to people. That doesn't build empathy. Say, I hear you and I care about how you're feeling. And you can talk about the fix, and you can talk about the behavior that needs to change, and you can talk about the decision. But first, empathy. When employees are polled, they say in research that they would be 3 times as willing to go along with policies they disagreed with if their boss expressed empathy for their opinion first. They are not looking for you to change the rule if you agree with their emotions. They want to know that their emotions make an impact on you, that you notice. Now let's talk about processing time. Processing time is just enough time to understand what's going on. The faster we make a decision, or the less sleep we've had, the more likely we are to regret that decision. You cannot always give enough processing time. First of all, there's some people who cannot have enough processing time. They could think about something for 3 years. And there are certain situations in which you can't give enough processing time. But understand that this is a tool in your arsenal. So if you know about a policy change that's coming for next fall, consider, I understand the risks in leadership of announcing policy changes too soon, but consider the benefits as well. Consider that giving people more time to think about something, give you their reactions in a structured way, not just to unload all their reactions all over you all the time, but consider that giving them that time to process. If you're going to, and I'll use an example from medicine, if you were going to require vaccination for all of your staff, and spoiler alert, I'm pro-vax, so I think that would be awesome, but you can see how that would be a really big decision and people would need a lot of processing time to take that in. They don't just need processing time, they need transparent information. What do I mean by transparent information? Well, it's 2021. They don't just need information, what you're going to do or why you're going to do it. They need to understand your sources. Who said you could? Like that's even a legal thing to do. Which medical advice are you listening to about this? Why do you think that's a safe thing to do? Because remember, that example, that's a big change. So people are going to experience loss and distrust and discomfort before they get around to choice. And maybe their only choice is to keep working for you or not, but they have to, or they might say, can I have time to talk to my doctor about it, or to better understand it, or to see how that's gone in other agencies. Transparent information means being transparent about your sources. That makes a big difference. You cannot always in leadership be transparent about your sources. You may come to them with a change about a classroom in your preschool that's going to do something differently because of an issue that came up with one kid and one family, and you would break a law if you were transparent about the source of it, or you would cause all kinds of social interaction problems, and you decide you can't be transparent about this. Okay, well then see if you can give more empathy, more processing time, or, and this is our last one, more autonomy. Autonomy is not what our 6-year-olds think it is. Autonomy is not getting to do anything you want whenever you want. Autonomy is about having more choices within limits. It is not about breaking totally free. It is about breaking some chains and figuring out what you can do, what your limits are, what your boundaries are, and what you can choose. So remembering that the more autonomy you give someone, the more resilient they will be. When you announce that you're going to a different work pattern from all at home or all in person to some sort of hybrid thing or a new technology, whatever the change is, if you can give your people more autonomy within that change, they will have an easier time being resilient. I really want to ask you to spend the next 10 minutes, checking my clock, yes, 10 minutes in breakout rooms with this specific question. And before we throw you into those breakout rooms, if you've ever heard Michael Brandwein speak, he says, in a minute, but not yet. I'm going to ask you to go into these breakout rooms and not take lots of time to introduce yourselves to each other, because we only have 10 minutes and I want you to leave with strategies. Strategies for what? Here's the question I want you to answer. You all answered that you're seeing signs of overwhelm or burnout, and empathy will make a big difference. But another thing that would make a big difference in managing that and helping people have the strength to move forward would be some autonomy. Autonomy, choices within limits. Okay, so if we have those choices, where could you offer your employees a little more autonomy. In any setting, in any, I want you to get into the weeds and offer each other suggestions, really think through, what could I do about vacation time, about scheduling, about work environment, about interactions, about anything? Where could you right now, next week, present to your boss or your board or just to your team, because it's within your purview, a little bit more autonomy? Because that would build resilience. Okay, Sam's going to throw everybody into breakout room.
Sam, you're muted.
I'm frozen and I'm sorry. I think I pressed it too soon. Do you want me to bring them back?
No, it's fine, but you put Deb in a breakout room. Can you break?
Yeah, I'm automatically muting every time I come back in. Will you broadcast the question?
Yeah, sure. Hold on.
Where could, or I can type it if you can tell me how.
I can do it. I just, hold on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Sam has to do it as the host.
Great. Where could you offer your employees more autonomy now?
Done.
Great.
All right, overall, sorry about getting muted. I wasn't even touching my screen, so I'm not sure how it happened, but
I think it's the Zoom ghosts.
it's all good. Luckily,
So it was for far less time than you thought. It was maybe barely even a sentence. It was very quick.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I've been scrolling. One of the things I do, I scroll through to see how people are looking, how many people are multitasking, and people are engaged.
I'll take it.
People whose faces are on the screen are definitely engaged.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yep.
lots of people are answering my throw a thing in the chat.
Yeah. And
Yes.
lots of people are doing the mentee as well. It's great. I'm really sorry about that breakout room thing. I didn't mean to press it so soon.
Not a big deal. Not a big deal. Sam, I used to work with an ICU nurse who said, we get over worse things every day.
Sam, do you want to stop the recording?
The question that everyone was answering for us, your employees more autonomy, like right now this spring. So when they come back, I'm going to ask them to report back on this screen. I'm using menti.com. And so if you haven't already, if you'd open that in a web browser, the code is here at the top of the screen. Sam, give me a thumbs up when people start flooding back, because from the screen share, I can't necessarily tell.
Everyone is back.
Fantastic. Okay. Hey, everybody. So what I'm hoping you'll do is report back. Did you have or hear a great idea about a place that you could offer a little bit or a lot of autonomy to your employees right now? Some people have already started doing this on Menti for me. So you go to menti.com and just put in something that you heard from someone, or someone that you something that you suggested that you think other people would really benefit from hearing. So a lot of this is about scheduling, which is great, setting their own schedules within established parameters, encouraging people to use their sick time for mental health issues, absolutely, or just for a mental health break, learning opportunities for staff to find ways to grow professionally and let them pick the topic in the course, being flexible, whether they're working at the J or at home, lots of scheduling opportunities, which is definitely where people kind of feel the pain the most and could feel the autonomy a lot. Being a role model for taking breaks, creating better ways of sharing feedback, give the goal and ask them how to get there. Boy, does that ever build resilience. Choosing their total hours schedule, client load goal, encouraging staff to use their breaks, get outside, take a walk, remote work, more autonomy in smaller how-to operational decisions, not just the big picture, like giving them a vision and a goal, encouraging them to take an active role in creating new post-pandemic programming, encouraging front desk staff to help create policies for more buy-in, more professional development opportunities, and you can look to JCCA for some of those opportunities. So we're getting some really good suggestions here, and I wanted to just mention that If you, at the end, I'm going to give you an opportunity to give me your email. And if you do, I will share all of these that you are putting in, all of these answers that I'm getting from you, I will share back to you in an email tomorrow. So if you're trying to take notes or take pictures, you don't have to stress about that. I will bring you this information tomorrow. And we're getting a lot of good suggestions, giving them the ability to troubleshoot the issue and then encourage them by assisting them in their thinking process, as opposed to fixing it for them. Flexibility, as long as they get their work done, putting in the hours and the performances there. These are great suggestions. So let's talk about resilience. And for those of you who learned with me at the talent management webinar that I did, some of this will sound familiar. The next 10 minutes or so is the review piece. I had mentioned that resilience is, in my definition, your ability to navigate change and come through it the kind of person you want to be. A lot of people tend to think of resilience as just the ability to be strong and flexible, to bounce back. And if you're a rubber band or a Rubbermaid container, then sure, that's resilience. But because we're people, resilience, and because we are teams and organizations, resilience is a little harder to define that cleanly, but we know it when we see it. So I would love for you to give me a word or a short phrase that when you see it in a person, that looks like resilience to you. What could someone do or show that looks like resilience to you, that you know is them being resilient? We talked about what we see when we're worried about overwhelm and burnout. Let's go the other direction. What do we see in our staff when we see them being resilient? Laughter, great. Perseverance, enthusiasm, engagement, confidence is coming up big. Perseverance, calm, positivity, engagement, collaboration, flexibility for sure, powering through, being curious. That's a fantastic one. They're adaptable, they're optimistic, they're calm. They see growth in change, or they experience growth in change. They reframe things. We have to know what it is we're aiming for here. And the rest of what we're going to talk about is how do we make our teams and our individuals more resilient? This is what we're aiming for. People who embrace challenges, go the extra mile. This does not ignore the fact that people are tired, that they are in the middle of a really, really ridiculously long marathon and the finish line keeps moving farther ahead. But we can find ways to build ourselves and each other up and get there. Creativity, flexibility, confidence, enthusiasm, energy. So how do we get it? I talked on that webinar, and I'm going to review today the 8 skills that are in that bucket word that we carry around. We carry around this idea of resilience, and you all gave me great examples. It turns out that there are 8 skills, 8 things people do that strengthen their resilience. Resilience is a growth commodity. It goes up when you work on building it, and it can drop in times of struggle. I mentioned before that we may find ourselves resilient in certain situations and less resilient in others, but there are skills that we can call on at any given time that make us more resilient. And I'd like to spend the next 8 minutes or so going over those skills and what they look like in the workplace. Although I want you to think about them for yourself as well. The first is building connections. We become more resilient when we do not feel that everything rests on us alone. When I know that if I am not able to solve something, or I can't be in 3 places at once, I am connected to other people who will answer when I call, who will try to help if they're able to, who will have suggestions for me or be able to offer me empathy. Those connections serve to make me better able to navigate change. I hope that that's pretty clear. And I think for a group of communal professionals, it probably is, but we can't understate the importance of building connections, both wider, more people, and deeper, more able to rely on individuals. Setting boundaries. When we know what we will do, what we have to do, what we can do, one of the ways that we are resilient in those spaces is to know what isn't our job, or what isn't our responsibility, or what we are unwilling to do. So in my work, if I said to you, are you willing to take a job where you are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days for a week? You may say, I did. As the second in command of a JCC, I absolutely am on call like that. Okay, that was within your boundaries of something that you're willing to do. Or You didn't know that that was part of the job, or it's not supposed to be part of the job and it's become part of the job. But that is a really good example of boundaries. When do I work? As a physician, I knew that that was part of the deal. And every other week I am on call 24 hours a day, 7 days in a row. I knew that was part of the deal. So that's within my boundaries. For a lot of your employees, that is not within their boundaries. And knowing when they work and when they are truly off, and you guys mentioned this as an obstacle early on in our time together today, setting that boundary and being able to hold to it without feeling guilty, without feeling irresponsible, without feeling like you're letting other people down. As a matter of fact, being told when you hold to those boundaries by not checking your email in times that you're not expected to, by not agreeing to work an extra shift when we said we want you to limit it to this number. When you are respected for setting boundaries, you become more resilient. When you have to fight to constantly set your boundaries, when you have to fight to constantly hold your boundaries, it becomes much more difficult to be resilient. I hope that for yourself and for your staff, you're starting to see ways that you could help them clarify, hold on to, and be respected for their boundaries, instead of feeling that they have people frustrated with them if they are able to maintain their boundaries. Opening to change. What does this mean? Like, of course, it'd be easier to navigate change if I was open to change. No. Opening to change is about being able to envision other possibilities. If you have a board member, and I understand that you sometimes interact directly with your board, you're not the first person that they go to, but if you have a board member who believes that a community center is only what happens within the walls of the community center, they've had a really hard time being resilient this year. And they will continue to have a hard time being resilient because we've shown our communities that our JCCs extend way beyond our four walls. But if you really believe that a community center is only the center itself, you can see how it would be very, very hard to be resilient given what's gone on. If you can build the skill of opening to possibilities you hadn't considered, either for the goal or for the path to the goal, being more resilient gets easier. Navigating change gets easier when you find more possibilities palatable. Managing discomfort. This is probably the biggest obstacle for people navigating change at work. They are tremendously uncomfortable, and a lot of our staff are tremendously uncomfortable right now. Absolutely. And the things that they would like to do to manage their discomfort are usually things that they think about doing at home when they're not at work. What are the things that your staff can do at work to help them manage their discomfort? When they don't like how things are going, when a member has been really unpleasant with them, when they got a schedule that isn't what they wanted, or they have to manage programming that's in person and virtual, or they have 3 new responsibilities because their department has been downsized or somebody quit. How do they manage discomfort while they are at work? What can they do? What can they have the freedom to do to help them feel better that is safe and ethical and legal? I'm not asking you to give them a place that they can go have a drink. I'm asking you to think really hard and help encourage them to find some autonomy by thinking, maybe you need a knitting corner. The people who knit can go and knit for 10 minutes. Whatever it is, what are the creative ways that you could help your staff be able to manage their discomfort while they're at work? I hope it's really clear how that would help them navigate change more easily. Number 5, setting goals. Knowing what it is you're trying to get to. And in our world, in the nonprofit world, tying those goals to your mission. The good that you do, the lives that you change, and the people that you help, that will build resilience. You cannot achieve something if you don't know what it is. Now, maybe you set the goals, but if you can say to a staff member or a department that's really frustrated about something, say, okay, what's the goal? And if they say to you, the goal is to have it shouldn't be this hard, say, great, I'm totally on board. That fits with our mission of supporting our staff. So how do we get there? But once they set a goal and they understand that all the work that's funneling towards that goal is to get them to a place that they agree that they want to be, they are much more likely to be resilient through that difficulty. Another skill is finding options, identifying options for getting places. Do you know which option we usually go with when we have when we have to make a choice? Not necessarily the best one, the first one. Where do you want to get food from tonight, honey? The first thing somebody names is usually what you go with. Where should we order lunch in for the staff meeting? The first thing that somebody suggests is often what you go with. Also, we have a lot of lore around this idea that your gut instinct is the right one. Have you ever had to edit an email? Have you ever had a rough draft that wasn't nearly as good as your final copy? You need more options. And the more you help especially your supervisor, your department head level staff, identify more options, the more they will be resilient, because something they tried won't work. And if they feel like there was only one good option, then they're stuck. There is no way to keep moving forward. Identifying options can be a little bit of a trap, because somebody can spend all day long making a list of where you could get lunch from and never actually getting lunch. Some members of your team struggle to just take an action and see how it goes. Try the program, call the members, change the lanes in the pool, and see how it's received. They want to survey and ask and think and ponder. They need lots and lots of processing time. So remember, when you're trying to move somebody to more resilience, maybe this person, although they would like more processing time, maybe what they need is empathy, or some more transparent information about why you want to change the lanes in the pool, or they need more autonomy about which way to change the lanes. But getting them to learn the skill of taking action, really valuable. And the last one, perseverance. This is the skill that people credit the most when they succeed at something big. When they have a big achievement, they say, oh, I sent in my manuscript to 15 different possible publishers, and I'm so glad that I kept getting up because it was that last one. Well, it's always the last thing we try that works, right? Because then it worked and we move on to something else. But this idea of perseverance, boy, it's hard, because this is what you have to do directly after failure. So anything you can do to teach, to model perseverance with your employees will make them stronger. It's time for a little bit more introspection. Where is your starting line today, April 28th, 2021? With each of these, where are you starting? First, I'm going to ask you about you. Remember, this is anonymous. So will you look inside yourself, and from not skilled to highly skilled, rate yourself. At each of these skills, how proficient are you? Will you come over to Menti, please, and really think about this? This is not so necessary to know how we are in aggregate. This is an opportunity for you to really think, for myself, how skilled am I at building connections, at setting boundaries, at opening to change, at managing discomfort, setting goals, finding options, taking action, and persevering. Remember, this is just a self-evaluation tool. Nobody knows but you what you wrote down. I am going to be quiet for just about 25, 30 more seconds to give people a chance to think about this. And after you've answered this, don't move off this screen, because now I want to ask you something that you're just going to have to guess at, but you are an expert in the people who work for you. Overall, how would you say that your folks are at each of these? The team at your JCC, the people you're in charge of, how proficient are they at each of these? Where are they overall really good? And where do they need some support, or where do they struggle? So this question is about how proficient are the people who work for you at each of these? And these we're going to talk about. But remember, please, there's absolutely no way for anybody to know what you put. So this is just an opportunity for you to really think about the people who work for you and each of these skills. I'm gratified to see that you feel really confident overall in your team's skills at building connections. As Jewish community centers, we have to hope that a lot of the folks who work with us are interested in being more connected to more people and have some practice at building connections, but that we're not perfect at it. We're not fantastic at it, but pretty darn skilled in building connections. And for people who are still with you 14 months into the pandemic, I think it's totally fair to say that perseverance and finding options, they've gotten a lot of practice in. And I have to tell you that every time I do this in a business setting, whether it's corporate or nonprofit, managing discomfort is where everybody thinks their teams are struggling the most right now. And I believe you. So looks like we've got about 2/3 of folks have given us their answers. And now I really want you to think about, when you look at this list, there's what you think that they're not great at, but that's not necessarily what you think they need. It might be the same thing, or you might think that's not so important, or it's not so important to me that they need to be open to change. Like they're just going to be what it's going to be. I want you to really look at this list. And in a minute, but not yet, I'm going to ask you to go out to breakout rooms, different breakout rooms. So there'll be new people for you to talk to. And I'm going to ask you 2 questions. I'm going to ask you to think about which of these skills, and it could be one or more than one, which of these skills do you most want for your team right now? If you could just snap your fingers, which 1 or 2 do you think that your employees could really use right now? And then, harder question, I'm going to ask you to brainstorm together some ways, given your work constraints, given your real lives, you might be able to build some of those skills, whichever of the skills that you guys talk about that you wish your teams had more of right now. What are some ways, one-on-one, in group meetings, in activities, in reward systems, whatever it is, what are ways that you could be building the skills that you want most for them right now? Okay, we're going to throw you out to these breakout rooms. Hi.
Hi.
How was that for the review from the webinar? Dory, did you feel like that was too much of a repeat?
No, not in the least.
Okay. I mean, they were the same slides for those 8 skills, but I actually didn't want to change them up and confuse people. Like, might as well just say, like, this is what we talked about. We're talking about it again.
Right. Benny, did you choose not to go in a breakout room, or did you want us to put you in one?
No, I need to take a 5-minute break. Sorry.
Oh, okay. No worries.
Thanks.
No, I felt like.
So here's what I would love for you to do. What's a skill that you talked about, and what ideas did you hear or did you say for developing that skill? So would you come over here and, for example, if you talked about managing discomfort, giving people a break room that they could go and use that was really private from the members if you don't have that kind of a thing. What skills did you talk about, and what strategies did you brainstorm to help people manage it? So empowering is something. How can we empower people more? Thinking big, absolutely. That will help people develop the skill of setting goals, using goal setting to promote collaboration, setting boundaries in a healthy way, setting boundaries and focusing on providing options to make that happen. I think that's really true. Ending the pandemic, definitely as a physician, we're working on it, I swear. Modeling through transparency, excellent suggestion. Finding options, setting up brainstorming sessions with the goal written down, but the options up for grabs. Enthusiasm, instead of telling people, coaching and empowering the staff on how to handle situations, challenging them in a positive way. Flexibility in capacity and scheduling. For managing discomfort, allowing staff to feel their feelings about what's going on in the world and take the time they need to cope without repercussions. Manage discomfort by working collaboratively to create goals and set boundaries, validating what people are feeling, conversation and listening. Modeling creativity, not just saying, hey, go be creative. Modeling transparency and vulnerability. Those are really, really important leadership skills. Providing structure and certainty as much as is possible. And flexibility, right? So we can see how both structure can help some people and flexibility helps some people. Using transparency to jointly develop protocols would help people manage their discomfort. A change, COVID turns things upside down. So now's the time to enact change so it's something to be excited about. That is a really excellent point. And I want to stop on that for a minute and remind you that One of the worst things about the pandemic is that it showed us that almost nothing is written in stone. And one of the best things about the pandemic is that it showed us that almost nothing is written in stone. So if there is something, a policy, a procedure, a physical plant issue, a scheduling thing that we've just always done, but you've seen how it could be better, you have an amazing opportunity now to make a change that will make people's lives better, that will make your agency more true to its mission. Setting boundaries, name limits, giving permission, making self-care a priority. Mentorship, strengthening communication, making staff more comfortable with change by being transparent whenever possible, answering the why. Why is the top motivator for millennials and Gen Z. It may also be for Gen X and boomers, but in research, millennials and Gen Z will go to the mat if they agree with your why. And you're saying, but what if they don't agree? All you have to do is prove how it's true to your mission. If you have integrity, if the why you're doing something is because it feeds the mission of your agency, they buy in, or they're totally in the wrong job. But all you have to do is show why you're doing something connects to why your agency exists in your community and its purpose. That will help tremendously. Again, I'm going to share these with anybody who gives me their email at the end to do that. Last thing we're going to talk about is managing up. I did mention early on in this conversation that we were going to talk about helping your boss be resilient. So keeping in mind that this is anonymous, I want to ask, how proficient is your boss at each of these skills? This is anonymous. I don't know who said what. So if Dory tells me that Daron is terrible at managing his discomfort, I would never know it because I don't know what Dory said. And with that look on her face, I think she would not say that, but I would never know who said what. None of us will know what you put, but this is a really important exercise for you to think about this person whose resilience skills are directly tied to your success. And we're going to talk about how to help someone that we work for to be more resilient, which is a delicate thing to do, but a really helpful thing to do. If I told you, I want to give the people who work directly to you, your direct reports, the skills they need to build your resilience, while that might be uncomfortable because it's a change and you might be thinking about the possible loss and distrust and discomfort, you can maybe also see the benefits. So take a minute, please, and just anonymously evaluate your boss's resilience skills. From not skilled to highly skilled, how are they doing? Interestingly, this reflects in great part the averages we saw for your teams. Building connections and perseverance are the top. They're a little higher than they were in the people who work for you, but in general, those are the top two. And finding options, really the top three. Managing discomfort, the hardest one. Setting boundaries, really hard also for a lot of people. And that makes sense. If the buck stops with you, you can see how if you weren't good at setting boundaries, people might like that. They might really reinforce that behavior, even though it makes you struggle with your own resilience. So our bosses in aggregate as a group struggle the most with setting boundaries and managing discomfort, do the best at building connections, finding options and persevering, but they're doing pretty well as well with opening to change and taking action. Okay. So I'm going to offer some suggestions, but first I want to ask you one more hard question, and that is, what can someone do to help their supervisor be more resilient? Maybe you could answer this question, and I am hoping that you'll take a minute and try and answer this question. What could someone who works for you do that would help you be more resilient, that would help you build one or all of these skills? What's somebody who works for you? What's something they could do that would help you manage your discomfort better, that would help you to be able to set boundaries better? Be patient with me, okay? Ask questions. I like that. Show empathy. Oh, wait, we need empathy too? Tell them what you need, be specific, be honest about what they're seeing, show appreciation, help with the load, acknowledge the issues, pick up the slack on their weaknesses, say, what do you need from me? And actually mean it. Offer solutions and not just talk about problems. I added that part. Be forthcoming with new ideas, show interest in the process. Honesty is coming up a lot. Think about how they ask for help, not just complaining and venting. Be patient, take accountability, be honest with their feedback, be proactive, Be open-minded about what that boss has to say and see things through. Be positive when communicating. Be honest with feedback to help the supervisor improve. Don't assume that they know what their weaknesses are. Listen and work to understand their perspective. Keep them informed with real issues. Reminders about setting and maintaining boundaries. That's a crucial distinction. Thank you for taking the time to italicize that maintaining. Be upfront and honest. Follow through on their goals. Be personally responsible. So if you're responsible and I'm your boss, that helps me be responsible. Create systemic processes that help everyone improve. Thank. Be appreciative. So some of the themes that are coming through here clearly are honesty, appreciating, sharing the work as well as sharing the feedback, accountability, and helping them set boundaries. Doing it for yourself and also trying to find a way to do it with them. Learning how to recognize their triggers, what's going to throw them off their game and help redirect them. Come from a position of curiosity. This is something that I learned really clearly when I was working with the Milwaukee J. They talk about this a lot. Be curious, right? Show appreciation, being truthful, even if they disagree. But patience, honesty, appreciation are coming through over and over and over again. Empathy. Nobody has, and so patience, that is about giving some of that processing time. And giving transparent information is in here as well. People are saying, talk about what you see, be honest about what's going on. And then that last piece, autonomy, that's something we often don't think of needing to give to our supervisor because we feel like they have all the power to make decisions, but they, as you often do, may feel that their hands are tied in ways that perhaps they aren't. How often have you, as a leader, as a supervisor, felt like you did not have much autonomy in a situation? And if someone who worked for you pointed out different ways it would be okay with them if you solved this particular problem, if they came to you with solutions, one of the concrete strategies I want to give to you is that when someone who works for you brings you a difficulty and you show them empathy, then ask them for 3 possible solutions. Whether they think they would definitely work or not, ask them, hey, can you let me know by Monday? Or do you have any suggestions right now for what you think would solve this problem? That doesn't mean you're making it a democracy. It doesn't mean you're throwing it back on them to fix it. It means you want to collaborate. So say, I want to collaborate with you about a good solution for this. The goal is X. That's how it's tied. This is how it's tied into our mission, or this is what we've got to do. But absolutely, can you tell me some things that you think might work? And for you, managing up, every time you go to your supervisor with a problem, to your CEO or your director with a problem, could you also go with a possible solution or 2? They may not want to hear it right away. But if you can offer, say, I've thought of a couple of possible solutions that I'm ready to run by you when you're ready to hear them. Some more things we're seeing. Be forthcoming with new ideas. Be proactive, show initiative, come from a place of yes. Use positive tone of voice. Pick up the slack for them if you can. Be open-minded about what your boss has to say. And really think about collaboration. I want to make sure that we get just a little bit of time for questions. And I want to end with this idea. Resilience is made up of skills, not genetics, not circumstance. Resilience is made up of skills that anyone can learn. Before we do break for questions, there's one more reason for you to go over to Menti for me. If you do want all of those great ideas that we brainstormed from our breakout rooms and also some free resources for me, will you go back to Menti? Your answers will not show up on the screen. It's going to ask you for your name and your email address and some other information. And if you put that in, tomorrow you'll see an email from me with all of those resources. In a moment, I'm going to stop my screen share, but you will still be able on Menti to put in that information and get that information from me tomorrow. So I hope that if it's interesting to you, you will do that. I'll also put my email in the chat if I can be useful to you or to your agency as you work to build team and individual resilience. I would love that opportunity. Okay, if you have a question and you want to put it in the chat, you can put it in for everyone, or you can put it just to Dory or to Sam so that you can be anonymous in those questions. Do we have any that we can talk about right off the bat?
I know Stephanie Levin had a question. Is she still on the call?
Don't know.
Yeah, I'm here. I was just asking, I'm curious about when you survey people about rating their own skills and then rating their staffs. I noticed that most of us ranked our staff's skills around resiliency lower than our own, whereas
Sure.
our supervisors were more comparable. I'm curious if that's common, and how much of that is perception and how much of that is reality?
So I don't have, there is no research that I'm aware of. I'm actually involved at Carnegie Mellon University's Tepper School of Business in researching this right now. And we're working with a couple of J's in addition to other organizations and other industries to identify those answers, but that research hasn't been done yet. But interestingly, I can tell you in my own experience, when I do this with large organizations, it is all over the place. That is how our answers turned out today, but it's not always that way. To your question of how much is perception and how much is reality, I would flip it around, and not in a flip way at all, and say, I'm not sure it matters how much is perception and how much is reality, because it's really great if you're willing to survey your own staff about themselves and how they feel they are at their resilient skills, and not just assume that you know. But a lot of your work as a leader is in what they're showing you. Whatever they may feel, it's their behaviors that you have to react to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks.
I've got a question here that was sent to me. When asking staff for solutions, but not selecting their solution over and over again, do staff disengage?
Sure, absolutely. If you give no feedback about why you didn't pick theirs, if you don't have an opportunity for them to say, hey, I've had 68 ideas and you've taken none of them, and that's frustrating to me. If you don't show any empathy for how frustrating it is to keep your hand up and never get called on, in essence, right? Like that's that feeling, then yeah, absolutely, they might disengage. So, and maybe that person's direct supervisor, and that might be you, I know, has some work to do with them on helping them with their problem solving skills, helping them understand how to connect a goal to possible solutions in that framework. If that's something they're tremendously bad at, then that's affecting a lot of areas of their work, not only your feedback situation.
Great. We had another question about any thoughts on the level of staff with which to use these strategies.
I have in different industries used these strategies with full-time folks at any level. Full-time camp counselors, so those people might be 17 to 20 years old, right, and older, but they could be that young. So it's not really about age, it's about their investment in your agency. So if they are there 2 hours a week, that's probably, not a useful use of your time or their direct supervisor's time. But because a lot of the strategies that you can use, you can just build into the work you've got to do. This isn't a whole separate seminar. It can be, and then you can get a lot more done, but you can drip this a little bit, 2 minutes into each meeting or your quarterly meetings or your department meetings, and ask people, and it could just be a slight change in your style. You maybe already do solicit ideas, but you could say, hey, while I'm soliciting your ideas, I want you to know that one of the things we're working on today is building resilience by finding more options. Just naming it. Just like you do when you're working with a group of kids. If you say to them, I really appreciate how patiently you're waiting, while they're waiting, they will get better at their patience and their waiting, as well as doing it for you right then. Just name it. And that can make a tremendous difference. But it is water on a stone, right? So it is slow drips that make a big change. If you just blast it with a fire hose, all you get is a clean rock.
And with that, I am really sorry to jump in like this, but we are just about out of time. So
May I have 10 seconds, Dory?
Sure.
My 10 seconds is to thank you
That
for your
boundaries
work.
thing, right?
Yes.
For me.
10 seconds to thank you for everything you have done to keep our Jewish community and our Jewish people doing okay for the last 14 months. My community needed our JCC. Your communities have survived in ways they could not have without you and your tireless efforts, and I appreciate you. Thanks very much, everyone, for your time and your attention.
That was a beautiful example of a compliment that I know this group takes so to heart, because they have worked so hard for always, but especially over the last 14 months. And Dr. G, I want to thank you for your wisdom, your guidance, and for giving us practical tools that we really can immediately put to use, both for ourselves as well as for our staff. Things like empathy and honesty, building connections. I love the asking for options instead of trying to solve all the problems. That's a hard one for me. So we so appreciate the time you took to be with us today. Now I just have a few quick announcements. I know we all crave more time to speak with each other. To that end, I want to invite you all to join us at the end of the day today, 5:15 Eastern in J Cafe. It will be an interactive, different, but great way to interact with your colleagues. So please check that out at 5:15 Eastern. At 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific, when my mind can do the quick conversion, you'll have the first opportunity for enrichment electives. Check the Spot Me agenda for 15 sessions that you can choose from. And we know that our colleagues are the best teachers. So from 4 to 5 Eastern today, 1 to 2 Pacific, join us for the Jcc Excellence Showcase. These will be 30-minute sessions where your colleagues will share JCC initiatives in programming, staff recruitment and retention, management, a whole variety of topics. So you can find the information and the links to those on Spot Me as well. A quick reminder about the vendor hall, the virtual vendor hall being open again tomorrow. You'll find that in your schedule. And as always, it is a privilege for Sam and I to be with all of you for this time. Thank you for your attention and involvement. And we are around, just message us if we can help you with anything. It was great to see you. Thank you so much.